Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are live with a very special guest, author Trish Beninato. Trish is a young adult author who writes fantasy, sci-fi, and paranormal with a little romance and strong female leads that kick ass all on their own.
Yeah.
She also writes adult fantasy under the name Riley Hunt. She currently lives in Maryland and holds a master's in education with an emphasis in reading literacy, but instead writes the literature she once sought to teach. She is a wine and coffee enthusiast who overindulges way too much. A proud nerd to the core, you'll find Star Wars and Marvel characters littering the shelves of her office, which she uses to influence her own stories as she works. She is the author of Kingdom of Blood and Spirit and her newest release, Sin City. Welcome to the podcast, Trish.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, we're so excited to have you here. There was a lot of nerdy stuff in your bio. I don't even know where to start because I was like, I want to ask about that. I want to ask about that.
I also love Star Wars and Marvel, so yes,
There's
are cool.
There's a running.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. There's a running joke in the author community that I'm Trish Darth Vader at.
Do you like try to murder your children and like
Haven't gotten that far yet. There are days.
It depends on how much they frustrate you, I'm sure. So since you're a coffee and wine enthusiast, because I am too, and you said you overindulge too much, I need to know if you do what I do, where sometimes you'll have a cup of coffee at 5 p.m. and then just go straight to a glass of wine. There's like no liquid in between, like no water, just iced coffee, wine.
Yes.
Yeah. And
all the time. I just had a cup of coffee and I'm eyeing my Lambruscos now.
What are you eyeing? What did you say?
I said I just had a cup of coffee about an hour ago and I'm eyeing my Lambruscos now.
Okay, yeah. So we always do a cocktail when we record. And so tonight we're having a strawberry basil margarita. That's quite yummy. So we joke all the time. It makes us funnier. I think it does. At least us.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just dive right in. We met you at Imaginarium, which was super duper fun. We're going to be there again in 2024. I hope that you will be too, but we would love to just really get to know you and learn more about your journey of becoming an author. So can you tell us how you got started and how you got to where you are now as a published writer?
Yes. That's one of those questions where you're like, okay, I can tell you. So I actually started writing very early as a kid, but of course, didn't publish until I was much older. I started seriously writing in 2014, and then by 2017, I started to look into indie publishing, which is how I published my first book. And I've been doing it, publishing since 2017.
Oh, that's great. How many books do you have published so far?
8 or 9, I think, and then I have 5 that are coming out this year. So it's a very, very packed year.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great for an author though, because not busy means nothing's happening, right? Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the same for any profession, but some professions you can slack off. I don't feel like you can slack off as an author, unfortunately.
No, I don't think so.
So you said that you have been writing since you were a young child. Is there a particular book that you read that inspired you to become a writer, or even a book where you're like, I can do better than that?
A lot of them. So when I was a kid, I really liked the R.L. Stein books, the teen ones, and Christopher Pike. I loved all those spooky type of stories.
Christopher Pike. He was awesome.
Yes, I loved his books. So it just kind of like, as I got older and my fantasy evolved, like Lord of the Rings and all of that stuff. And now I've seen myself writing more dark fantasy, so I can see that R.L. Stein influence, just adultier version. Yeah.
Right. Who knew? I mean, is R.L. Stein still alive? Because maybe we should ping him and say thanks for influencing all the dark romance authors.
There are a lot of R.L. Stein books at my kids' elementary school library.
We still have them at our library.
There's a lot.
They still get checked out, and I mean, there's still new ones coming out. So I'm assuming
he wrote Goosebumps, right? Mm-hmm. So I will tell you, I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I read that Goosebumps about the girl on Halloween where she puts on the mask and it won't come off. And I had bad dreams for weeks. Like, it's like symbolic of so much, right? But can you imagine putting on this mask and being like, oh, this horrific thing won't come off my face? I could not stop thinking about it. I'm not going to sleep well tonight either.
Trish, did you ever watch Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon?
I did, yes.
I feel like that was the R.L. Stein.
I was gonna say if
Nickelodeon.
you liked R.L. Stein, I feel like because I was really into that, but that is what gave me nightmares. Like Goosebumps didn't bother me, but it was Are You Afraid of the Dark that freaked me out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway.
So we'll be sure to tag R.L. Stein and say shout out from Dark Romance.
Thanks for all the influence, man.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it had
Yeah.
to come from somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I know that you write under two names. So you write under your real name, which is Trish, right? And then you also
Mhm.
write under Riley Hunt. So can you tell us
Yeah.
about the differences in those books and why you made that choice to write under two different names?
So I started as a young adult author, and I was writing young adult books, and I wanted to break into darker themes for my fantasy novels that are more adultier, more spicier. And my kids read my young adult books, so I wouldn't want them to read anything that's, inappropriate. And same thing for my readers. If they're going in looking for a book, I want them to know what they're getting. So I decided
love
to
that.
rebrand.
That's
really-
that's
yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah, we're all moms too. So yeah, same thing. I mean, my daughter's not allowed to listen to this podcast, if that tells you anything. So, she's not allowed to read a lot of the books that we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, I can't imagine your child walking into Barnes and Noble and being like, my mom's name, and then it's got like the word cock in it or something. I don't know how
My
spicy
son-
your books get.
My son took my young adult books to his elementary school when I first published them. Was like, my mom wrote these.
That
I'm
is
like,
so
they're not-
cute.
They're not for elementary schoolers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Young adult is young adult, right? Not
Mhm.
first graders.
Well, at least you didn't take your adult dark fantasy novels.
That is true. Those are on the top shelf.
The teacher's like, oh honey, I already have copies of those. That's what's worse is whenever I think you write something like that and there's someone in like real life that's like, oh my god, I loved that book. Because sometimes like people will come to us on the podcast and we're like, please don't tell us what you actually think of it, and we don't need to know if you agree with some of the stuff we talk about with sex.
Mhm.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Sin City, pardon me, and your upcoming sequel to Kingdom of Blood and Spirit.
Okay, so Sin City is one of those really dark fantasies that kind of go between the themes of dark and light. Not there's neither just one dark or one light. And so Grace is every time this question gets asked of me, I'm like, I don't know, don't ask me, I can't tell you. But really, it's a book about dark themes where she is the granddaughter of the devil, and she's also human, so she has those human tendencies to want to, that empathy, that compassion, whereas the devil does not. And where things are good, they're not as good as you think they are, and where things are bad, they're not as bad as you think that they are. And in Sin City, there are all houses that host the sin that people can go to, and that's the only place where you can actually have freedom in this world, because outside of Sin City, the archangels rule the rest of the world in the society, where they rule under very archaic rules.
So Sin City
So-
is kind of like New Orleans at Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday type of
Yeah,
debauchery, right?
yeah, definitely.
Wow,
And
that's
she's
super
trying
cool.
to take down a sex trade ring so that she can help these human women in the city and keep them safe. So it goes through that storyline. And then Queen of Vengeance and Fate is just the book 2 of Kingdom of Blood and Spirit. And it's just a romantic fantasy where the first one was enemies to lovers, and this one's more of a trying to get you out of a dungeon and defeat the Scroll Queen type of thing.
Cool. Does it, or how can I ask this? Okay, let me just put it out there. How much spice is in these books? I need to know before I pick them up.
Sin City is probably a 3 out of 4 or a 3 out of 5, maybe a 4, and book 2 will get spicier. Queen of Vengeance and Fate, book 1 is probably a 3, book 4 will be a lot spicier.
Okay, well,
Or
I
book
can't
t-
wait
book
for
2,
that.
I'm sorry.
That sounds great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, when people are like, no spice, I'm like, well, how good is it then? Like, how far is the
Yeah.
plot going to take me in this book?
Right,
You
yeah.
know, I am pleasantly surprised by a lot of books without spice too.
And Trish, Sin City is already out. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
And then the Queen of Vengeance and Fate comes out later
Yes.
this year.
It will be coming out in the fall.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. I can't wait for that. Okay, so you have a really awesome website tagline that I wanted to discuss with you. It reads Magic Stories, Badass Heroines, One Soul Eating Writer to Rule Them All. So, can you tell us a little bit about that soul eating energy that you bring into your writing? Because I think that's super, super duper rad.
I have to tell you where that tagline came from first. My friend
Okay, please
Jessica
do.
Sundin actually coined that up for me because I'm a redhead and I'm always joking about, my writing is so dark I could eat everyone's soul. So she's like, I've got it. This is what your tagline should be. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect.
It's always the ones that look so sweet, isn't it?
Yeah. So once you read my writing, you're like, I get it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
So, with the soul eaters, is that something just because it's in your tagline? Is that something, do you have soul eaters in your book or just the energy that you're bringing into your literature?
The dark fantasy, I do have a book that I've been working on that goes to another series that's going to be like a kind of like a sequel, I guess you could say, kind of spin-off that is going to have a soul eater in it.
Oh,
Trying not to
fun.
make her a redhead, even though everyone's trying to push me that way.
Sometimes you can't help the way
Yeah.
your characters are. If she's a
Right.
redhead, she's a redhead, right? She might just need that fire.
Yep.
So one
Mhm.
thing I'm always really interested in, because I think if you're usually like a book nerd, you're also a music nerd. So I would love to find out more about what kind of music you listen to if you do while you're writing, and then what kind of music your main characters listen to.
So I listen to a lot of different stuff. I'm old school, so I'm listening to old 90s and early 2000 alternative rock, and then ZZ Ward and Hailstorm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So anything that brings that energy to what the character is doing within the story. So if she's in a fight scene, I want that high energy song. If they're in some dramatic, heartbreaking emotional moment, I want something to match that as well.
Do you have a favorite band that what band do you go to when you need inspiration?
Skillet.
That's a good one.
That was a good one.
Again, old school. I'm kind of stuck in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
I've got
Although,
a lot of that
I was
on my
gonna say,
playlist.
I am too, but mine's like Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears.
Someone said the other day that their kid called 90s music classic rock, and they were like, motherfucker, you're right. And if you think about
Right?
90s music, I mean, we were listening to 70s music in the 90s and calling it classic rock. And I hate to break it to everybody, but the 90s was a long time
It was
ago.
30 years ago.
I know,
I'm
which
like,
we are not old enough for this.
No, we are not.
We are really not.
Definitely
I
not.
know.
So we did find out a little bit about some of the fandoms that you like in your bio. Are there any other fandoms or other nerdy things that you get into?
Books, of course. And also Doctor Who. As a matter of fact, a funny story, my son just forced me to rewatch all the Doctor Who's. It's our thing together. And I have not watched the last few years of Doctor Who's.
I'm not
And
either.
he made me watch them, and I kept going, I wish they would bring David Tennant back. I wish they would bring David Tennant back. Spoiler, end of it. I'm like,
Yeah, I
Wishes do come true.
I've tried to get my daughter to watch Doctor Who with me, like when it starts with Chris Ecclestian,
Mhm.
whatever his last name is. And that first episode with whenever he comes back as the Doctor is that mannequin one, and the special effects are so bad. And my
yes.
daughter's like, what? I mean, she's gonna be 16. She didn't literally say this, but her eyes did. She's like, what's this shit? And I'm like, but you have to meet Rose, and then you have to meet, David Tennant, and then you have to meet, so I'm gonna get her there eventually because she is a nerd, but
You got to make it through that season to get to
it's
the rest, and
important.
then
You
you're
have
just
to have that storyline,
Mhm.
right?
That's
But
what you told me when I started watching it.
yeah, but it's not that great.
I've still
Wow.
never seen a single episode of Doctor Who.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure it's your thing. It's a little too epic fantasy. Like, I don't know. It's I don't know how to explain why I don't think it's your thing.
I'll
But I
just
don't think it
continue to
is.
not watch it, I guess.
As best friend to best friend, I'm like, don't waste your time. I don't think it's for you.
All right, so we're going to move on to we're going to do a couple of speed rounds. And by speed, I mean really fast. We noticed that a lot of authors have trouble with this because they like to think out and plan out and make sure their words are perfect. But we're just looking for the first thing that pops into your head. Just spit it out basically. So the first one is our nerdy and dirty speed round. So I'm going to say something and you just tell us what it is. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay. The last song you listened to.
Ooh, that Cinderella song. I don't know the name of it. It was really good.
Like an older one, like an 80s one?
No, it's
Oh.
really new on YouTube. I
Oh,
will have to.
I'm thinking like the hairband Cinderella.
No, she's an angry Cinderella, and she's
Oh.
talking about how Cinderella's, not as Cinderella as you think she is.
Oh, you'll have to send it
Oh
to
yeah.
us.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. All right. What fictional character do you have a crush on?
Luciana.
Oh, don't
I
we
mean,
all,
who
honey?
doesn't? I mean, come on.
Yes.
He's just perfect. The book series that you always recommend.
So I recommend a lot of them. Alicia Kalfik has a series out right now with Faye completely through the entire thing. Arranged to Marry the Elf Mage, there it is. And then anything by S.N. Gaither,
Mhm.
Jessica Sundane. Allie Winters has a series out called The Vampire Death that is really good. If anybody has not read Fourth Wing yet, it is definitely worth the hype.
Whitney, she has a signed copy from Imaginarium that she's not read yet.
We're just going to
Yeah,
shame you until you do.
I have a lot of things on the list.
Here's the thing, though. Whitney's reading, and that's all that matters,
Yes,
right? So
true.
you'll get to it eventually. But yes, it is very good.
It
All
is
right.
like I hadn't read it when we were at the book signing, and then so everybody was talking about it, and I went home and I read it. I was like, it's worth the hype.
It definitely
It's
is.
really
And
good.
so very rarely I say that, but and I'm like you, I hadn't read it before Imaginarium either. So yeah, I don't think I read it in 2 days.
Yeah.
All right. A book character that you would get nerdy and dirty with.
Castell
Mm.
from Blood and Ash.
Yeah, definitely.
What TV series would you recommend that everyone watch?
Doctor Who? The Mandalorian.
She thinks I should watch
She
it.
does.
Yeah, you should watch Doctor Who. Yeah. Just get past number 9. You'll be fine.
All right. A food that you refuse to eat.
Onions.
What superpower you would want to have?
I want telepathy. I want to know what everybody wants in my book.
Favorite weekend activity?
Netflix watching.
Mm.
Like
Or
Netflix
reading.
and chill. Netflix.
Oh, there you go.
See, I'm one of those where I'm like, I don't want to chill. I never get to watch TV. So if I'm watching Netflix, leave
Don't
me alone.
expect chill from.
How
from
about
that.
read and chill? That's more likely to get me going.
Smut or plot?
Both, if I can say that. If it's
We
got
actually
some
had one
smut,
author say plut.
if it's going to have smut, it needs to have some plot, because I'm just going to be like, okay, so another chapter of this, which is good, but there is an overindulgence.
Yeah, truth. Your favorite childhood book? We sort of touched on this.
R.L. Stein, definitely.
Currently reading or the last book you finished and loved?
I just read The Ledge by Stacy McEwen. It was
How
really
is
good.
it?
Loved it.
It's
It's
been on
good.
my
Yes.
TBR for like ever since it came out, and it keeps dropping, not by choice, but because stuff comes up, right? So, how
It's
many
worth the
stars did
read.
you give it?
I gave it 5 stars.
Oh,
Ooh,
wow.
okay.
All right.
right.
I
It's
don't
gonna
even
move
think
up on
that-
the list.
I don't think that's even on my TBR. So add that one. And then finally, this is the most important question: cake or pie?
Hi.
Me too. I know
Cake.
you're a cake girl. I know.
Yeah, I need the fluffy.
If
Okay.
it's good for Dean, it's good for me.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. See, I think we're soulmates.
So-
Yeah, we're meant to be.
We tell everyone we have a life-size Dean cut out like right behind the camera over here, because we've gone to 6 supernatural cons together, and he always travels with us. But Mindy had one for a while, and her husband used to put like panties and stuff on
Yeah,
his
he would
head all
put
the time.
pearls on him and like, yeah,
He got stolen at a convention,
He
so we had to
did.
replace him. Yeah.
that was so sad. All right, so moving on to the next speed round. It's this one's even quicker. Book tropes, yay or nay? All right, so let's jump in. Fated mates,
Yes.
enemies to lovers,
Yes.
forbidden love,
Yes.
haves versus the have-nots.
Mm, No.
Love triangles.
No.
Secret or hidden identity.
Yes.
Social commentary.
No.
True love's kiss or the magical power of love. Either one.
Yes.
Rejected mates.
Yes.
Touch them and die.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites.
As a
too.
dark fantasy writer, I would assume that. I would assume that. Who did this to you?
Yes.
Small town romance
No.
or sports romance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I have a follow. Do you like mafia romance at all?
I like to read it sometimes.
There's so much of
Um,
it out right now. And I'm really interested in if you'll send me some recommendations, because I feel like a lot of them are kind of the same, right? Like he kidnapped her, someone tried to kill her, and then they fell in love, and then she felt bad about it, and then he felt bad about it. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You're bad people, but like, what else? Right. So I would love if you could send us some recommendations of mafia romance.
Okay. I'm trying to think. The lady who does, have you guys read Hooked?
Yes.
She does one of them where it's mafia.
Yeah. Is
One of
that
the series
the
books.
Wretched one?
I
Because
think
that
so,
was my
yeah.
favorite one. I gave that one 5 stars because I thought the character development wasn't unrealistic, but it was still really good. And
Yeah, I
that's
think she did
Amy
a
McIntyre for listeners.
yeah, she did really well with that one.
Yeah,
I liked
I
it.
love
And,
that.
you know, again, it's got that fantasy mafia romance going on. So it
Yeah.
does have a fantasy element to it. I'm probably gonna be like, yeah, I read it, but I can't really tell you much about it.
Well, and I didn't realize at the time I had seen Promises and Pomegranates by Savar Miller going around forever. And she also does like some retellings, and I gave that book 5 stars. It was kind of a mafia romance too. But it was a Hades and Persephone's retelling, which I didn't realize when I started it. But I didn't realize that Emily McIntyre and Savar Miller are like best friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I thought was really, really funny because they have very similar writing styles.
Yeah.
And Savar Miller lives like an hour and a half from us. I found that out because she posted she was signing in a bookstore, and I was like, where? I'm a stalker.
Creeper McGee over here.
Well, that's what book talk is. Let's be honest.
So Trish, you said earlier you have 5 books releasing this calendar year. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about those books? So was Sin City was one of them, I'm assuming, or is it 5
Sin
more
City.
from this point?
Well, from this point into 2024. So I'm in 2 sets this year, multi-author collaborations is what we're calling it, with combined themes. Trapped By, which is coming out in the summer of 2024. Mine's going to be Trapped by a Siren's Kiss. And then we are doing a sexy, dark, spicy Prince of, and I chose Prince of Darkness, and that's coming out in the fall of 2024. And before that, we have another one, Enemies to Lovers. It's a fairy tale retelling where I'm doing a Beauty and the Beast kind of fairy tale dark world.
Awesome.
And then I also have Queen of Vengeance and Fate coming out as well this year.
Wow. So
Awesome.
can you tell us some of the other authors that you're working on, the like, I guess, would you call them collaborations or more anthology? Is it like the thing they're doing right now with like slaying the Naga King and slaying the Vampire Conqueror? It's like that sort of thing,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last one they just did was Bound By. I don't know if you know the books Bound by Honey, Bound by Stardust.
Yeah.
Alicia Cowfleck, Jessica Sundane, Jamie Dalton are a few of them. I'm trying to think of a few others that are in the set. So we are doing Trapped By, which is similar, except it's water themed. And they'll be the same authors as well. I just skipped out on this one.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot
I was
going
gonna say
on.
you had
Yeah.
other things you were doing.
That's awesome. I think it's really cool when other people, not necessarily me, are driven and like super ambitious and not for me, but for them. I think it's cool.
Hey, you guys have this podcast. It's really cool.
Well,
That's
thank
ambition.
It really, we
you.
get together every Sunday and drink and talk about books anyway. So we just started turning on a microphone.
Yeah, now we just record it. So we got to hang out with you a little bit and talk at Imaginarium. Do you have any other events or festivals, anything like that coming up this year?
So I am going to Utopia Con next year in the summer, as well as Imaginarium again. But for this
Yay.
this year here, I'm just doing local stuff.
Awesome.
trying to stay close to home.
Well, you have to have time to,
To write.
write and edit 5 books. So
Right. So where can we buy your books?
Right now, all of my books are on Amazon, so you can buy them there. A few of them will be going wide here soon with the new changes in KU.
oh
So,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
Is that hurting you or helping you as an author?
Um, I think it's more hurting than anything, but we'll
Yeah.
see where I'm going to go wide and see how it does if my sales go up, and then play around with it, marketing and stuff.
Right.
Where can we find you online?
Me, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I have a website.
Okay. And then our podcast always ends with the three of us sharing our nerdiest thing of the week. Sometimes it's book related, but sometimes it's not. Just something that we got really excited about and felt like we nerded out about. So we would love to hear what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
Probably the Doctor Who thing. My husband
Who
looked at us
rewatch.
like we were crazy. Yeah, he looked at us. He's walking by like, "Are you guys okay?" Because I'm like, "Oh."
That's so funny.
I imagine you look like when guys watch football, or girls, either one,
Mhm.
and they're really into it, and then they make the touchdown, and then like the popcorn goes flying, and they're like screaming and jumping up and down. That's what I imagine you look like.
Mhm.
But like the popcorn just goes everywhere.
But it was fun though. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it was
rewatch.
fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like doing stuff like that, especially when my kids get old enough to be able to watch stuff like that with
Besides
me.
Daniel Tiger.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Coco
And
Melon.
freaking Bluey. But
Oh my God.
whew. Well, Trish, thank you so much for being on the podcast and chatting with us. It's been fun to get to talk to you more and get to know you a little bit better. And we're already counting down to Imaginarium a year from now.
Yeah.
You
Well,
said
thank
you
you
will
guys
be
so much.
there.
I will be there. Yes.
Awesome. Good.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. And you guys are from Louisville, right? Is that
We
am I
are.
that right? Yeah, I am too.
Are
I
you
originally-
really?
yeah,
So
yeah.
where do you live now?
So my husband went into the military,
Mhm.
and now we are in Maryland, close to Washington D.C., where the Imaginary Book Festival is.
Okay.
We went
So
to school.
at-
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We met at University of Louisville.
Did you really? So
Oh.
did you grow up here too, or just go to college here?
So my family actually were military too. So my parents are in Hopkinsville, a little town down at the bottom,
Yeah.
and so kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kentucky's Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter goes to U of L, so go Carts.
My grandfather was a diehard UK fan, so that. didn't go over well.
So, I mean, you know how crazy people here are about sports. And I was in a final interview with the board of trustees. This was like 7 years ago. And I got asked if I was a Cats or a Cards fan. And like, I don't sports at all. I'm like, have you seen me at like, do I look like I sports to you? And so I just threw out the name of my college alma mater and acted like I knew what I was talking about. But I literally looked at him and I was like, don't wrap me up in your crazy business with cats and cards. I don't want anything to do with that.
No. Yeah. I went to grad school at U of L and my sister went to grad school at UK. So
Well, that
House
explains a lot.
divided.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. Family get together.
yeah, it's a great old time.
It always is. Shout out to Catherine.
Yeah, shout out to Catherine. Well, thank you so much, Trish. We'll have to chat more about Louisville next year at Imaginarium next time we chat.
And tag us in
Yes.
your releases, please, so we can
Yeah,
share them and
yes.
read them and, you know, spread it far and wide for our listeners too.
Oh, thank you.
That sounded disgusting. I'm so sorry.
Spread it far, spread it wide.
There's going to be an acknowledgement in her book to all the ladies that spread it far and wide.
Let me write that down.
This one's for you.
I say that every week online. Sorry.
Oh,
Rails
man.
always.
Well, thank you so much, Trish. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.